All right, what up, gang? So we are back on another episode of the podcast, Making Dollars Make Sense, right? Where we introduce financial literacy to athletes, to all the different things that happen in the world nowadays, as far as NIL, player contracts, financial teams, what to look for, who you should be counting on when it comes to making these decisions. What kind of team should you have in place to facilitate I can't talk, to facilitate these decisions. And so that's pretty much what this platform is all about. It's all about financial literacy. It's all about helping you make informed decisions with your funds as an athlete, as a young professional, somebody who just wants to put the proper team in place, get some more info about things, and hopefully at some point we'll be able to have athletes on and be able to talk to them about what's actually happening with their NIL deals. Is the I know a lot of the information is accurate because I am talking to people, but what's their experience with NIL? What's their experience with maybe potentially working with agents if they're a high earner, or have they been approached by agents, or have they been approached by other people wanting to manage them? All these things go into it, and this is really some information that I wanted to kind of help give to the parents, maybe some athletes who are thinking about potentially getting an agent, or whether they need this team, or whether they need this person, or whether they need somebody to build their brand. Hopefully, some of these facts that I'll share with you today will kind of help you, and I'll kind of use some visual aids to do the same thing. So we'll go ahead and get started, and let's get it going. So let's go to share screen. Okay. All right. So we'll go ahead and get started with we're going to go ahead and pull up our deck here, and we'll get started. So, basically, this is kind of a deck I created to kind of help everybody understand that, all these record-breaking deals that we see on NIL. Some of these are typical. Some of these are typical for these schools because these schools are getting these type of high-end players. These are the people they recruit. Where and then you can kind of think about where you might fall in kind of some of the things you should be thinking about if you fall in these places, and what you need to do to get yourself to the next tier, or to keep yourself at the tier that you're at now, because make yourself more marketable, um, and don't give away your money to people who you don't need to. If you just need to educate yourself, or a family member or somebody around you in your immediate circle just needs to educate themselves on what they need to do to kind of help you through the process. So we'll kind of get started here. So again, this channel is all about financial literacy for athletes, um, young professionals, people who are just looking for some better guidance on how to be good stewards of the dollars that they get. And here we go. So, high end versus typical NIL deals, right? And we'll kind of move on to the next slide here, work through it. Don't you hate it when technology doesn't do exactly what you want it to do when you want it to do it? All right, here we go. All right, so athlete profile comparison. What is a high end athlete, right? And we're typically talking about, um, from we're this is about from a high school level to a professional level to a college level. Who's getting the money in the NIL space, right? So, well, basically, when you're getting this NIL money, you kind of go to an amateur professional type deal, which is kind of how the NCAA has coined it. You are now amateur athletes, um, professionals in a sense. So, but still, they're still trying to figure this whole thing out. But they're getting better with it. They're getting better with the tracking of anything over $600. You have to upload into their database, that NIL database, to keep track of the deals, and really so that they can kind of build a basis for what's actually happening versus just hearing it from this source or that source or this source. So, kind of building a benchmark for themselves and hopefully can make it easier to navigate. So, high end athletes, 5-star recruits, national stars, large social media presence, professional representation is a typical thing, or at least there's people swirling around trying to give you professional representation. So typical athletes, solid players, good guys, got some local recognition going on, right? Limited online following, maybe not doing as much as they could be doing in the social space, or connecting with people, or just kind of putting themselves out there. And often they're self-managing this stuff, right? Because they're not making that investment, and or maybe it's not that big yet, and they're just kind of doing their own thing and going and doing it as they go. So, um, just to kind of show you guys the difference. These are the athlete profile comparisons, and this is what companies are looking at from the standpoint of which players they're targeting, who gets paid what. They put these athletes in buckets, and this is how they're breaking it down. So just to kind of give you an idea. All right, so compensation range, right? So what are we talking about when we're talking about compensation and dollars that are actually being paid? So um, high end NIL deals, 500,000 to 6 million. I know we've seen, and really at this point for these high end deals, we're talking about on a yearly basis because these contracts are year to year, which I think is absolutely amazing because it's almost in because in college football, and now I'm starting to understand why these kids are coming back and they're kind of going year to year. And you just started seeing USC post these, oh, such and such re-signed. You've never seen that in college football, but they want you to know that this person re-signed, right? So that's some good PR and publicity for them. Like, hey, we're retaining our players. They're getting ahead of it. They're kind of they're really the first school that I've seen that I have saw um, do stuff like that. So I think it's really cool. They're kind of taking that NFL professional approach, and I think it's smart. They're getting ahead of it. So because let's be honest, these are year to year. This is year to year stuff. Um, if you watched that Diego Pavia podcast with Bussin' with the Boys, he was talking about they were basically like, hey, how do you break down, at the end of the year in your exit meetings with your coach, and you guys are kind of getting, and you're kind of basically figuring out, hey, are they asking you, how much is it going to take to keep you? What's your number? Blah blah blah. And he's like, well, yeah, in a roundabout way, it's something like that. And so it was Diego Pavia and his teammate. So on the podcast, they were basically just talking about, what happens at the end of the meetings, for quarterbacks versus for O linemen, and how is that being facilitated based off of the coaches, um, etc. So Diego was like, yeah, basically at the end of the day, they give us these little questionnaires. They ask us, what we did, what we felt about our season, what do we think we could get better at, um, where are we training in the off season, do we have a place to train, is there a gym, who are we training with, et cetera, et cetera. So they are tracking this stuff now. So the trainers, they're watching these trainers, they're watching who they're this they there is so much more attention being paid to what's going on, and the kind of training that you're getting, and the type of I guess the focal point of how much is what's happening in the off season, where you're actually spending your time. They're watching and they're tracking. So once you get through kind of towards the end of the questionnaire, it says, then you start to get into, okay, what number in your mind would you take to stay here? What do you think it's going to take for you to stay here? And this is obviously they're asking you this because they know, the season's probably coming to an end. Somebody's reached out to you at this point, and or your agent or somebody close to you. Obviously nobody tampers, right? So nobody should be reaching out to you, um, within the confines of the law, the rules and the laws of NIL and tampering, right? But anyway, So you have some idea of what you're worth at that point. And so they want to know what's your number at the end of the day, if they're going to be talking to you, or you can just say, I'm actually not a part of this process. My agent actually takes care of that. And he was talking about, man, keep in mind, these guys and somebody with the busing with the boys, I think it was Theo Vaughn was there also. And he said, well, those agents are taking 10%. Some of them taking 20%. They're like, yeah, that's crazy. You could really negotiate your own NIL deal. And you probably could, but 9 times out of 10, you having some type of professional representation to help you out through this, and maybe you even stepping back and say, hey, my agent's going to take care of this. He knows what's out there. Maybe I'm taking less money. You don't know you don't know what your earning potential is. Same thing in the NFL, which is why these guys negotiate so hard and their agents really go to bat for them. Yes, obviously the agents are getting compensated. We live in a capitalist world. Who's doing anything without being compensated? Even if it's you have your client's best interests at heart, you provide a service, right? So that's kind of a given. But they're putting their best foot forward. You're putting your best foot forward, not to take less money. In some cases, maybe you do, but this isn't the NFL. The idea with NIL is not, oh, I'm going to take a small deal so that you can retain such and such. I don't know if I'm going to hurt my leg and not be able to earn money for the rest of my life after this. We haven't even begun to talk about guarantee, and that's where the guarantees get built into these deals with agents, and they're like, wait a minute, my guy needs a guarantee, XYZ. So that's why it does make sense for agents to kind of enter the playing field when we're talking about a lot of money. We're talking about millions of dollars in some cases, as you can see with high-end NIL deals going from 5 million to 6 million. Carson Beck got 4 million. We know of others that have gotten in that range. Quarterbacks, from what Diego Pavia said, quarterbacks, they're getting 4 million for some of these top guys is like a starting number now. 4 million, 4.5, which is like mind-boggling for a college kid to be making 4.5 million like in school. It's nuts. How are you focused on your studies knowing you're going to make 4.5 million or whatever? And maybe you can be, I don't know. It's not me, but, you just start to think of all these things that come into play, which I think the NCAA initially, that's maybe the whole reason why they didn't want compensation to come into it. Cause then it would be all about the money, which they're making money. So, I just think ultimately it comes down to what are your values, right? And how grounded are you keeping yourself? Anyways, not to get off topic, but basically I just want to kind of give you an idea of how these meetings are going with these schools. And at the end of the year, when you see these guys hit the portal, they've maybe had these exit conversations and said, okay, well, this is what can you guys give me? Because this is what I'm thinking I'm worth on the market, what I'm thinking I'm worth. They know what they're worth. So um they've got their feelers out there. They have their agent have with the feelers out there for them, and they know what they're worth. So at the end of the day, it's like sometimes it does come down to numbers, and they're like, okay, well, I'm going to go ahead and hop in the portal. I think I can get more money, and that's how that happens. When you see these kids hop in the portal, they've had these exit interviews with their coaches and gone through everything. And as much as they like this coach, and you know, maybe it doesn't make sense if I'm valued more elsewhere, or maybe you can't just do more. And it all comes down to what am I going to be compensated? And and I gotta think there's a lot of people in the background on this stuff, maybe family. There's a lot that rides on this stuff now that um maybe has always been there, but it's even more to the forefront. There's a lot of factors that go into this stuff. So all right. But so that's that. So that's how the typical exit interviews are happening with coaches. It's a questionnaire at Vanderbilt. It's maybe something similar. Maybe in some cases, um, Diego Pavia was saying he's heard that guys just walk into the coach's office and say, "Hey, this is my number. Like, we don't even need to go through the semantics. Like, if you guys can't match the number, then I'm just going to walk." And so I guess that's happening too. So um, just to give you guys some context on that. So major brand endorsements, multi-year contracts, typical NIL deals, $50 to for the typical athlete, $50 to $10,000. which $10,000 is a pretty good chunk of change still, in the grand scheme, something extra. Um, Local businesses, and I think some kids could be making this with the proper, especially in high school, with the proper, just somebody behind them who's like, hey, this kid has XYZ, he's building his brand. You're obviously not going to get probably 500,000 to 6 million right now, anyways. It could happen at some point in high school. I mean, I guarantee it's going to start happening. You're going to start seeing these kids, doing commercials for dealerships and stuff like that. Nuts, but it's going to happen. Um, and get your money. Get your money. If it's there, get your money. Um, so local business partnerships, mostly small one-off deals, is what the typical NIL deal looks like for these athletes, right? Whether that be in high school, whether that be in college. I think, and when we're saying typical NIL deals, we're talking, if this is college, we're talking low end of the roster, right? You're a part of the team. We're happy to connect with you. Just to say we're, maybe businesses with lower budgets, et cetera, et cetera. Um, but I mean, in high school, man, we've got you got to have somebody that's in your corner there, especially if you're starting to build some notoriety. 7-on-7 season's about to start happening. I think it's a good time, especially if you're balling in some of these national tournaments. These are televised. These are on ESPN in some cases, retweeted on Overtime, all these different platforms, YouTube. This is the time that you need to be executing on your strategy. Like, hey, you know, I just balled out at this 7-on-7 tournament. Before the next tournament, within that, you're like, hey, would you like some would you like to do some publicity? Would you like publicity for your business? Some marketing. I'm happy to do it. I'm gaining notoriety doing this XYZ. You got to sell yourself in some cases to these businesses, especially if you're in high school and you're allowed to make money off your name, image, and likeness. Do it when you got the time now. This is your off season. School, knock out your schoolwork, of course, but in your free time, market yourself. Take it serious. Start building your brand now. It's important. And it's important that you have a good game plan to not only facilitate you talking to these businesses, but have an idea of what you're going to do. Already assume that these businesses are going to take care of you and you know, they're going to pay you these dollars or whatever, right? Start having a financial plan. What am I going to do now to set myself up in the future? Whether it be a high yield savings account, you know, let's talk about what we're going to do going forward. It's important. Start thinking about that stuff now, guys. Ninth grade, 10th grade, eighth grade. It's coming. It's coming. Let's start learning how to balance a checkbook. Let's start setting up a checking account. Let's start using a checking account. Let's start understanding how to pay a bill. Let's talk about these things. Let's talk about taxes with kids too. Let's talk about taxes with college athletes. Taxes are a real thing. Uncle Sam's going to get his. And we hear this all the time. Plan accordingly. And if you don't have somebody around you that's going to help you plan accordingly, find somebody who will help you plan accordingly. It's going to happen. It's important. Everybody wants their cut. Uncle Sam wants his cut of these NIL dollars too. So just keep that in mind. And that's another responsibility, another burden that comes with getting this money. And so just make sure that you have the proper team in place. You're having these conversations with your family. And so that you can have a proper plan going forward. All right, let's move on. All right, so the types of NIL deals, right? High-end deals. We're talking national brand campaigns, equity. These are for high-end deals. National brand campaign, equity, royalty based. Let's say for everything that gets sold from your maybe you have some branded stuff, like for instance, Bryson Wright with Battle. Let's say for every, click that he gets from, the link being posted on a advertisement that he's in, that there's a royalty that's paid from everybody who purchases from that link. So, and that's a high school deal. High school deal. It's happening, guys. It's happening. Albeit he's the number one player in the country, but it's happening. There's gonna be a trickle down. There's too much money involved. Football is becoming too big of a sport, especially in high school. 7-on-7 is about to snap. Telling you, you gotta get ahead of it right now. If coaches aren't, start getting ahead. Think about sponsorships and stuff like that that's happening. This stuff is going to take off, man. There's going to be a trickle down effect to where there's going to be kids. Maybe not. There's high school is going to be high. It's going to be high performing athletes. It's going to have to be value. There's not going to be the trickle down that you would see on a college roster where, maybe the 46th kid on the roster can get some of these deals too because he's on the team. It's not going to happen in high school, but there will be some trickle down. All right, so that's the equity and royalty based part of that thing. Every click, every branded product, you'll get a royalty based off of XYZ. Performance bonuses. How'd you play that game? What would you do in that 7-on-7 tournament? You get XYZ. When you score, if you have some Nike branded gloves, put them gloves up. You got a wristband on, put the wristband up. You got a branded headband, put the headband on. You score. You know what I mean? Performance bonuses built into what you're doing. It's part of deals. But we're talking about not just 7-on-7. This is going to be typically performance based within your college contract at the university, within just similar to an NFL type of performance bonus that you would hit throughout the year to get additional dollars. So, but it can be structured in any way in any type of contract. So this is what these businesses are thinking about. This is what these brands are thinking. So typical deals for typical players: local restaurants, gyms, shops, small sponsored posts, campus or community partnerships. This typical deal portion, I think, is what's going to be huge for high school guys, for high school high earners, right? Typical deals for college kids, for college guys. Make substantial deals for high school kids, getting local and restaurant and gyms to start to kick in on some of that stuff. Small sponsored posts, campus or community partnerships, right? Probably more so community partnerships because these are public schools, right? So just keep that in mind. If we're talking at a high school level, obviously there could be, through your deal with the university, there could be some type of campus incentive that would happen. So just kind of giving you guys the differences between the high school and the college kind of wheel of this thing. All right. So time commitment. What's it going to look like for you if you're if you're spending your time doing all this stuff and trying to meet these commitments? You're going to have and again, if you don't meet these commitments, it is a contract. They can withhold your money. They can ask for your money back. Keep in mind, these are contracts. These are obligations. These are things that you're going to have to fulfill your end. It's not just, hey, give me the money, my hands out. Same thing they're going to start writing clauses into these NIL deals if they haven't already, which I'm sure they have, because some of these guys have gotten burned. So time commitment, monthly deliverables, PR, travel, media days, more complex obligations. Obviously, I don't know if you're doing anything extra for the university. I'm thinking that's going to be worked into your deal, right? Name, image, and likeness. If you want me to go step out and go do this media day, let's put a little scratch in the wallet for the kid, right? Same idea. All right. So and more complex obligations, which could be whatever. Clauses in there like, oh, you need to spend you need to go give back or not give back or go spend some time at the children's hospital, or we have partnerships with this law firm. You need to go shake some hands over here on XYZ day, or go show up at this event. Just stuff like that. So typical athletes, social posts or appearances, that's kind of where NIL started. And then the high end part is where it's kind of gone. So at first it was a social post maybe a couple of years ago, and oh, we'll pay you a couple of dollars for this, or when it was kind of like the wild wild west, which it still is now, but it's getting better with them tracking everything over $600. So pretty manageable, right? Minimal administrative work. I went on a recruiting visit to FSU under with Mike Norvell, and they were talking about this stuff and how they had, this whole program on how they were going to help the guys get deals and this and that. This was before they had the salary cap and they could pay them directly. Now maybe this isn't so much of I'm sure they still have this program, like FSU deals or whatever it is, or it's like a app or a platform that helps you like manage and monitor everything, and opportunities will come in through the app, which I'm sure they have something like that set up now where these opportunities arise and they're like, hey, we want such and such or this and that. So I'm sure they still have that, more university managed at that point. So key value drivers. What's going to drive your value? What's going to make you marketable to these colleges? What's going to make you marketable to these brands? More so brands. The college NIL deal is the given. You're going to sign a deal to go there anyways. The brand deals, all the stuff outside of that is going to be the gravy. The contract to sign up with the university, that's the mashed potatoes. All the other stuff that happens outside of that with the brands, that's the gravy, right? That's the extra. That's the additional value that you're adding through making your posts, through building your own brand, YouTube, TikTok, talking to people, going on podcasts, making yourself marketable. It's important. And if you start to do these things now, as you can see, players in the NFL, when they know their time is coming, and they have ambitions to be broadcasters, what do? Jameis Winston, typical, on his bye week, him and Russell Wilson, they're in studios. They're on these NFL shows. They're trying to build their brand that way. Because why not? If that's making him more marketable to CBS, more marketable to maybe another Netflix who maybe might hire him to come on a show, somebody else who might pay for him to do a podcast, a radio station, a syndicate. They're watching everything. It's time to build your brand if you're not thinking about it. Brand, brand, brand. Performance says a lot, means a lot. But your brand is good, is what's going to help you elevate to that next level on top of your talent. Have a good personality. Be a good guy. Go do the right things. Market yourself. It's important. So national exposure, 100K to 2 million, social media reach, elite performance, obviously. That's a given. Elite performance for that high-end NIL factors. And really, nowadays, you ain't even got to be the most elite guy. You could be pretty mid and get a good deal. You could be pretty mid and get a good deal. Right, guys? So we've seen it. Same thing in the NFL, man. If you need a quarterback, might be if it's the guy's job, they're gonna pay you the money if you can even get him a winning season. So we're seeing this going around. They got money to burn. So typical NIL value tip for the typical player. NIL values, but NIL value factor, regional, local reach, right? Smaller but loyal following on their building their social media. They're still doing the same things. Well, maybe their play and they're not at that elite level yet. The typical NIL value factors I'm thinking are going to be high school kids in this setting. Typical for college players already on a team. For high school players, you're going to have a regional, local reach to start off. Small but loyal following as you're building. Solid team role. In this case, you'll probably be one of the best players on the team. But always be thinking about building your brand, guys. Because while you might not be great now, you're working every single day. You putting in the work, but you've already been thinking about building that brand. You've already been thinking about building your brand. You've already been thinking about when I in future tense, when I get this money, I'm going to do this with it. I'm going to invest it here. I'm going to put it here. I've seen people go broke. I've seen people do the wrong things. Get the chain, but also put a portion of the money here. Maybe in a mutual fund. Maybe in a life insurance policy. Maybe in a future income annuity. Be thinking about some of these things. Be thinking about some of these things and what you want to do with the money. Because once you get the money, it's important to keep the money. That's the most important thing. Getting the money is important. Getting the money is important. And that's a process. So don't be money hungry either. Because everything that glitters ain't gold, and all money ain't good money. So keep that in mind. That's why it's important to have good people around you and people who can vet and look at some of these deals that are being signed. So that they can, if the universities are going to protect themselves, you should be protecting yourself. Even though they hate it, they might hate that you have some type of representation. They might hate that you have Uncle Charles, who's a lawyer in the room, who maybe don't want nothing from the deal, but he's going to make sure you're taken care of. Right? High school level, middle school, building your way up. You've seen these kids in Little League who are killing it on the social media stage. You got Blaze, you got him and his dad having their own podcast, their own channel, and building that up. His dad has done such a good job with that. If you don't know, it's I think it's Blaze 813 on Instagram, but just as a young kid, he's come up, flag football, tackle football, one of the best athletes in the country, already getting offers. It's been amazing. Hold on. Here we go. Monitor got unplugged. Technical difficulty. Foul on the play. All right, here we go. We're back up. Anyway, all right. So, but it's just important to start building your brand from a young age. It's important to understand financials from a young age. Play good, be smart. Play good, be smart, build your brand, stay committed, and just keep going. But even if you're not the best player on that team, it's still important to still do the same values, because typical money is still money, right? High end NIL, we all want that. That's what we're hearing on the news. But that's not typical. That's the top 1%, top 10%, 5-10% of college football is getting that money. The other 90% are getting typical NIL value. It's all right to get the typical money too. All right? Because you might get the typical money at first. A few years later, you might be getting that high-end money. Like a Diego Pavia, who started off at New Mexico, played 2 years at New Mexico State before he got his big deal at Vanderbilt. Sometimes you got to stay down, but while you stay down, you're building that brand. You're making those connections. You're starting to build that financial literacy. You're starting to understand what we're going to do with these dollars when we get them. Right? So always speak it into existence. All right. So what's our summary, guys? We've been on here for about 30 minutes. The summary is high-end NIL deals that we're seeing every day on ESPN, on Bleacher Report, you name it, Instagram, TikTok. High-end NIL equals big money, equals big expectations. With big money comes big expectations. Typical NIL, small but meaningful income. Small but meaningful income. It's still money. It's still money. Money's still green, right? Every athlete can leverage NIL strategically. Every athlete. If you build enough value in yourself, you can leverage NIL from high school to college to NFL. Well, NFL, you're getting contracts. It's still name, image, and likeness in the NFL. You're still making money off your name. It's still NIL in the NFL. So just at on a bigger scale. And in some cases, even the guys on the lower end of those rosters are making typical NIL money because one day they might pop and their name, image, and likeness might go through the roof, right? So keep that in mind. Financial literacy is essential at all earning levels in life, in football, in retirement, everything. Financial literacy is essential at all earning levels. Seek knowledge. Seek and you will find. Seek knowledge, guys. My goal with this platform and this channel is to keep you informed. I hope to be coming to high schools to preach this message, to tell you what's really happening, what's really important, what you should be doing, how to be good stewards of the dollars that you're getting. It's important. It's important. So that's what I'll leave you guys with, man. It's been great. It's been great to kind of get that, and I hope to do more breakdowns like this, man. It's really good. Hopefully you guys got to understand, you got to see, all the big impacts that NIL can make, what your role is, what you need to be thinking about, and just building your value every single day. Even if you're not there yet, keep building, keep working, and keep building your knowledge. Knowledge is key. All right, guys, I'm going to let y'all go. Peace. See you next time.